Okay, we've got James Bowden as well joining in on the show right now to talk about what he's making of the market construct right now. James, don't have a definitive answer, mourning fiercely about which way the West Asia situation is going to go. But does it seem like those elevated crude levels at least are behind us?
I am not really sure. And I think actually we may see higher prices because the FAA announced a NOTAM earlier today in which they stated that there would be air traffic disruptions over the northern Persian Gulf. And so the area from Kuwait down to Bahrain and covering northern parts of Qatar is going to experience a lot of shutdowns, periodic interruptions. And so what I believe is that the United States military is going to be shifting the focus of operations to the South Pars field and possibly even Karg Island. So a lot of the oil and natural gas that is accessible in that area is actually going to be likely moving into the hands of the United States, or it's going to become highly contested for a long period of time. The U.S. is stating that the NOTAM will last from now until about October 27th. So we're talking about just about a week, maybe 2 weeks at most, away from the United States midterm election. So that should give you a pretty good idea of the long-term changes that we should anticipate.
James, hi, morning. You still have, while Strait of Hormuz is something which has been contested by both the countries, you still have issues coming in Red Sea. You have now issues coming in Caspian as well. Do you think, from a global perspective, crude or oil flows will be impacted much more, and the street is not factoring in how the Houthis is going to impact Red Sea traffic as well?
So let's take some of these areas individually and break them down. Right now, what we've seen is that Ansar Allah is focusing all of its operations towards Saudi Arabia. And of course, we did see some drone attacks against their oil fields just today. And we've seen some drone exchanges between various countries. Now, they have said, Ansar Allah has said that their operations are exclusively focused on Saudi Arabia. And so far, that is what we have seen. So it's been very consistent messaging. However, that could change if they decide to launch a drone towards the United Arab Emirates. If they launch one towards Qatar, obviously that draws in those powers. If Iran decides to throw a missile over to Jeddah or to Yanbu, then of course, again, it extends the conflict that way. So right now we're dealing with two separate conflicts. And we've seen this before. Yemen and Saudi Arabia fought a conflict from 2015 to 21. And so these things can go on for a long period of time, but there is a chance that the two conflicts could unite into one major conflict in the region. Now, with the war extending into the Caspian Sea, I think that that is very interesting. You know, I don't know what it signals as far as oil shipments are concerned, but definitely it does pose a new challenge and a new front in the war. We are now seeing how Ukraine is being brought into this. And the ship that was targeted was carrying missile parts and drone elements from Russia. But could this be a new way of leveraging and moving the strategy towards interrupting oil flows through that venue? Certainly. And we should always be fairly flexible and ready to see some pretty interesting changes. Now, I think that, again, and just reinforcing what I was saying a few moments ago, I think that there's going to be a large strategic shift in U.S. operations. I think that what the administration has decided is that the Strait of Hormuz is kind of a frozen issue at this moment. We're at strategic parity. And so by shifting the center and the gravity of operations to the north, the United States is looking to really shake things up, modify things if they can take control of Karg Island as well as those fields in the central Persian Gulf, then I believe that what they're going to try to do is move in towards an economic blockade par excellence and try to really gain control and really sever those economic ties for Iran. And again, this kind of links back up with the Caspian Sea. Ukraine has now, what they've done is they've said, here's a proof of concept that if you support us with military hardware, more drones, more missiles, then we can get involved in this conflict and we can choke off Iran. It's almost kind of reminds me of the Anaconda strategy during the American Civil War, where the Union basically imposed a 360 naval blockade. And I think that that is something that the U.S. is moving towards. They're moving towards a full 360 blockade if they can in order to choke off these supplies.
James, just trying to get a sense, what's the objective here? I mean, I'm just taking a bit of a step back. What is it that is going to be achieved, and how likely is it? Is there a possibility that you denuclearize Iran? Is that at all possible, or is that a bit of a stretch?
Well, I think that Donald Trump is trying to denuclearize Iran, but I think he is still pursuing this economically. He's still not at the point of putting troops into Iran itself. And quite frankly, the only things that can really move this war apart from the economic blockade and achieve his diplomatic goals would be either troops on the ground or the use of nuclears. I mean, let's just be honest. We are in a very tight spot. Now, again, as I have advocated in many other venues, if India were to add her conventional forces to this conflict, if she were to come in on the side of the United States, then there would be that asset buildup, and then you have Ukraine coming in. And then I think Iran would feel sufficiently isolated that they would finally decide to seek a diplomatic resolution to this, which again appears to be the ultimate destination for the Trump administration. But I do see that they're really not sure how to get there. And I find it interesting that they have shifted to the north because I was going through various scenarios in my mind all morning this morning as to how they might be able to achieve this goal. And this was one that I really did not anticipate, but I think is fairly brilliant because these oil fields in the northern Persian Gulf are exactly where the blockade running ships, or the ships that Iran is trying to get into the Gulf, through the Strait of Hormuz, that's their destination. And so if they just take that off the board, then they've accomplished a significant amount against Iran. But it's, again, as far as the goal, definitely denuclearization, possibly regime change. Conditions in Iran must be really terrible, despite what the videos are showing. And let's not forget that this government in Iran is very expert and has a long time to learn from the experts in disinformation like Russia and China, where they've created the supermarkets where they have all the food and they have the full shelves, and then you look just a little askance and everything is empty. I think that Iran has kind of gone to school and learned the lessons of propaganda, and they're able to show the bright, shiny objects and how life is okay. And then if you just shift the picture a little bit, you would see how dire the economic and life situation is in Iran. And a government in that situation really cannot hope to last very long, regardless of the fact that they are a dictatorship with a veneer and an appearance of democracy. Their citizens are restless and looking for change.
Very hopeful note, James. We'll let you go. Thanks for taking the time out and speaking with us.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you.